Get reimbursed faster for extra work with Equipment Watch's Rental Rate Blue Book. Learn more at fusible.com/thedirt. Hi everybody, welcome back to Equipment World. You're watching The Dirt. I'm your host Brian, and today we're here to talk to Komatsu about the new PC220. From what I understand, this is a complete from the ground redo of the 220. And here to talk with us today is Nathaniel Waldschmidt with Komatsu. So tell me, what is new on the 220?
Well, to be honest with you, we don't have that kind of time today. It's more or less what's not new, and that list is much, much, much shorter. So it's a ground-up redesign on this excavator.
Okay.
From creature comforts to work equipment to engine to hydraulics, performance, maintenance, technology, you name it.
So if it is that big of a redesign, let's kind of break it down into sections, and then let's hit the high points that you really feel like are worthy of bringing up. So first of all, cab improvements. That is what as operators we're going to notice right away. What's new with the cab?
Well, that's the main focus, right? That is an operator's, that's their office. That's where they go every day.
Absolutely.
Our cab, we tried to treat it like you're sitting in your truck, right? So the width of the cab has been increased by 30%. We've increased the length of the cab. We've increased visibility because of these improvements by up to 50%.
Wow. So here's a very real and tangible question from an operator. Is there finally enough room that when I use that roll-up door, I'm not having to crouch over so that I don't get bonged in the forehead with that window?
We have increased all spaces to alleviate that previously heard feedback from customers.
Perfect.
And again, this is why this entire development has been as long as it has, because we have spent day in and day out with customers, not just sending them, an online survey. Hey, what do you like? What don't you like about an excavator? These generalities. We're spending time in the dirt with them to hear this back and forth and trying to really come to the conclusion of really what they need out of an excavator.
Well, moving on from cab improvements, my big ask and curiosity is what is different with machine control? We're starting to see where most of the OEMs are incorporating machine control into these machines, but I'm always excited to see what the next iteration looks like. So can you give us a little detail on that?
But before we get into that, I want to take a second to tell you about the sponsor of this video.
Tired of guessing when it comes to your equipment costs or underutilized machines eating into your profits? We know it's a common challenge in construction. That's where Equipment Watch by Fusible comes in. They're the industry-leading source for accurate equipment values, true ownership costs, and crucial utilization data. Imagine having the real numbers at your fingertips to make informed decisions that directly impact your bottom line. With Equipment Watch, you can see the full picture, optimize your fleet, and bid with real confidence. Take control of your equipment expenses and gain a real competitive edge. Visit fusible.com/thedirt to learn how Equipment Watch can help you. What is different with machine control? Can you give us a little detail on that?
We have a dedicated team on development for our intelligent machine control systems. So starting within the cab, we have a very, very sleek, nice 10-inch ICT monitor that has, I would call, smartphone-like navigation and response time, right? Within that, we offer now a 3D boundary control. So what this means to the operator is you can set boundaries within your job site plan, not only when you think about machine control when you're grading with the excavator, but also about the safety around you. You can set ceiling perimeters, you can set grade perimeters, and you can set wall perimeters. And what's important here to understand is when you say 3D boundary versus what some competition has as 2D boundary, the second you move that excavator, whether it be up, down, left, or right, that fence is going to move with that preset boundary. On our 3D boundary control, we will actually have the capability of setting a job site plan, and that excavator can move within that entire plan without having to reset that boundary. That boundary will maintain because that 3D control will understand a change in the overall excavator's elevation and or left to right movement and so forth.
So let me see if I understand this correctly. I'm going to use my phone as an example of a wall, and here's my excavator. And I have a boundary set to where I can only swing to this point before the excavator stops. but now I'm going to track over here. And with traditional machines, I still have a boundary to where I can only swing to here. But because your machine knows where it is, it's now going to allow me to swing to here. Am I understanding that correctly? That it will adjust that boundary to where I still can't hit the wall, but I can now swing further than I could with the original boundary set?
Yes, without having to reset it. That's exactly right.
Wow. So, and I'm assuming that's height restrictions as well. So if I go down 4 feet in grade, I can now raise my boom up 4 extra feet.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
So without having to reset anything. Once the plan is in the project, you can go to work and not have to do any of those recalibrations.
And just to clarify for some people that still have a hard time with 3D and 2D, 3D is we're really talking about with GPS on site. And so in order for these boundaries to work, this will require GPS on site. Otherwise, you're back to a 2D situation where you're only working in 2 planes.
That is correct. Which I should mention, we do have the capability of doing as well. We can still accommodate to a point, but that's what we want to emphasize, though, is if you are within that 3D and that cellular communication, we can accommodate.
Any other machine control improvements that you want to speak on?
So the other thing I'd like to point out is the things like you have a change in design. We can do that with in-field design technology and capability on our 3D machine control. On the other side of that, we're going to be continuously updating as we move on to our -12 excavator. We're going to have a lot of other features that roll out and will be available to any customers who purchase our -12. We will offer what we call our travel to line feature. So what this means is within the GPS system, within the 3D system, that machine can hook up to a polyline within the project to be able to, again, let's just use that trenching application. You can actually move that machine, track the machine, and that machine, as you're tracking, will hold that polyline by automation. Our 3.0 intelligent machine control, we're on a journey towards automation. Now, with automation, we understand that there are experienced operators like yourself that say, I don't need automation. So we've also incorporated the customization. So to give you an example, another feature that we'll be coming out with is our swing to line feature. So think about a utility application. You're digging trench, okay? Of course, normally it's always the operator input to put you back right on that polyline of exactly where that trench needs to be, okay? So we now have the capability of adding that polyline to the plan. Now, the operator can enjoy this in 2 different ways. One being simply more or less at the swing of a stick, a stop functionality will not let you go past exactly where you need to go back and continue to dig. Number 2 being, again, that journey towards automation of the press of a button, and that machine puts you right where you need to be to dig. And again, that kind of plays along with also our auto swing technology as well, which is, again, a separate function, but kind of similar, where you can set 3 different waypoints to get you from dig to elevation to dumping point with the press of a button. So we are trying to accommodate all operators of all expertise levels.
The industry likes to knee-jerk to this technology, and I can't say that I'm not included in that, because your dozer, in fact, the slot dozing capabilities of your dozer absolutely was Brian Furness knee-jerked as an operator. There's no way this thing's going to outperform me. And the reality of it was, it ended up being more efficient than I was.
It's almost like cheating, isn't it?
It is like cheating. And that's the thing, is there is a hard part of the ego that the industry has got to swallow, that you've honed your craft, but at the same time, there are certain areas where you'll never be able to compete with a machine and a computer.
Exactly. You hit it on the head.
So enough about all of that. Let's get into engine control, fuel management. What have you guys done there to improve the machine?
So from our engine standpoint, we've actually increased our horsepower by 5% compared to our previous model, all while increasing torque, but reducing fuel consumption by up to 18%.
Wow, that's substantial.
We know the first thing that we hear in North America is more productivity, more performance. So we hear that loud and clear. But if we can give you even more on top of that, that's what we're aiming to do. And that's what we did do with the Dash 12.
And you hit it on the head. We on the front lines don't care so much about the fuel consumption. We care about the power and the productivity. But it is really nice when you kind of go at the end of the day after you've had a really productive day and you go, oh, I still got half a tank of fuel left. I still got 3/4 of a tank of fuel left. Like that's when we as the operators really notice that. And you're talking 20%. That's a substantial amount of fuel savings from the previous models. Like that's enough to make you stand up and go, holy crap, I did notice that. So all that to say, if the performance doesn't suffer, I'm all about the fuel savings, but I do love that you had the priorities straight there, that you kept the performance, you improved the performance, but you also gave you a really good fuel savings. So what are some of the other improvements you guys made with this machine with your ground up redesign?
So again, as we kind of talk about that journey with our engine and control system advancements, we've increased our overall productivity from our previous model up to 18% as we have added an additional working mode. So now we have L mode, which is basically, lifting, loading applications. We have an economy mode. There are actually 3 different levels of that. And then we have P mode, which is kind of your general power, your general application. But then we have added P plus mode. So that is where we get up to that increase. And that kind of ties into the story of, again, we can talk about what we've done to our hydraulic system, but we've increased our hydraulic capacity within this space to be able to keep up with that kind of overall match and productivity. But the last thing I want to talk about when we talk about engine and control system, we are still a Tier 4 final compliance engine, and we have actually removed our EGR to meet that standard. So there's no more service issues or costs associated with an EGR for a Tier 4 final emissions. Of course, we still do have a DPF filter. We still do have DEF, but still maintaining that 1-to-1 ratio, very close to 1-to-1 ratio of fuel fill to DEF fill.
So when you talk about performance improvements, what kind of performance improvements are we seeing on these new models?
Speaking specifically of our PC220, we've increased our overall lift capacity by north of 7%, with dicking forces up to north of 35,000 pounds on this machine when figured in P plus mode. But the other thing that Komatsu has built a legacy on, we have actually accommodated within our design everything from our plate thicknesses to our bore cylinders on our hydraulic cylinders. We've increased to maintain that stability that Komatsu is known for, to maintain that durability that Komatsu is known for. So that has not fallen out of vision for Komatsu.
Well, that's kind of what sticks out to me is for a long time, manufacturers were just trying to keep up with the compliance with the emissions regulations. And so much of their time and effort went into just that. It was all focused on that. And it's been really exciting over the last 5 years or so to see the manufacturers come back to, now we get to focus on making the machine better. I'm genuinely excited to get my hands on this machine and play with it, not only from a performance standpoint, but I am really curious about all of the features with the machine control and the boundaries, all of it. I'm very excited to get my hands on one of these. Nathaniel, I really appreciate the time today.
Brian, thank you.
Well, thank you for Nathaniel coming on the show to talk to us today about the new PC220 and some of the new improvements and updates that are coming to the machine. This is one that's really exciting, and it's pretty incredible how technology is changing this industry. As always, I hope this helps you in your business. We'll catch you on the next episode of The Dirt.